Around the year 1900, African Americans in the southern states started playing a new style of music, the blues. They were mainly farm laborers, toiling from sunup to sundown in the fields, paid nothing or next to nothing, living in some of the most impoverished regions in America. Some say the blues was a product of this adversity, others that it was born out of field hollers and work songs and church music and other popular genres of the day. But no music historian seems to have mentioned that the blues was almost exclusively the product of street performers. In fact, 19 of the first 20 people inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame were buskers, the 20th being a pianist. Most of them used busking as a way to leave farm life behind and pursue a career in music. They'd busk on street corners, at markets, and outside stores, supplementing their income with paid gigs. During the 1930s and 1940s, many musicians followed the Great Migration of African Americans out of rural southern towns and into the industrialized North. A lot of them soon found themselves in Chicago, where the blues scene revolved around the Maxwell Street Market. Record labels sent talent scouts to hunt for the hottest new performers in town at that market. Also, it was so busy that those buskers started plugging their guitars into amplifiers to be heard over the background noise. And that's how the blues became the electric blues, the sound that would later morph into rock and roll. In other words, we have street performers to thank for rock music. But more than that, it was those street performers all the way back in the 1900s playing slide guitar and bending notes who were the first Westerners to experiment outside of the 12-note scale, a scale that we'd rigidly adhered to since Pythagoras invented it in 500 BC. You can hear the influence of those blues musicians creep into jazz, into country music, in the guitar solos of Queen and Korn and Coldplay, and in the voices on all of today's televised talent shows. It doesn't stop there. America's poor black communities created a third revolution in the 1980s when the four pillars of hip-hop, graffiti, breakdancing, rapping, and DJing, were invented on the streets and in the parks of Harlem and the Bronx. The point is that street performance has always been the venue in which the arts are developed and transformed, and it continues to be the backbone of our cultural industries. The impact of busking is clear. A minimum of 30 inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and 21 Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award winners began their careers busking. I say minimum because the busking part of a celebrity's history is often ignored or hidden from view. The cultural establishment is somehow embarrassed that it is built on busking, viewing street performance as something that's done at worst by beggars with a gimmick, and at best as artists in the middle of failing to achieve. Imagine being embarrassed by busking. Throughout human history, it has always been true that the vast majority of the world's live performances have been in the street. This is common sense. No city has the capacity to stage all of its artists in all of its genres, magic, mime, music, and the multitude of other performance types included. Also, no city has shed the structural classism and racism that benefits performers from certain backgrounds over others. But far more important is that no resource on the planet is more freely available to the entire cross-section of a population than street performance. Even clean air and clean water are associated with a postcode lottery. Street performance, on the other hand, does not discriminate. Go to any street show and you'll see the entire cross-section of the population there. Street performances are normally the first contact children have with live music, and the only place where you'll see migrants, people in wheelchairs, the elderly, tourists, the affluent, and everyone else side by side. On 3 separate occasions, I've personally seen beggars take money out of their cups and put it into a street performer's hat. I've seen kids with severe developmental issues that would be considered disruptive indoors in a state of bliss watching or interacting with a street show. Perhaps if the importance of busking wasn't so hidden, people wouldn't ask full-time street performers whether they'd ever considered following a more traditional career in music. Busking is the tradition. The recording industry is the modern aberration, and the algorithmically controlled digital dystopia musicians are faced with today is even worse. There isn't an equity, diversity, and inclusion-focused arts consultant in the world that wouldn't dream of having a busker's audience. It's time to recognize that.